let's talk first about content standards. And our story today begins 5 years ago in 2010 when the Common Core state standards were released, and actually a little before that, but in 2010 we decided to do a study comparing the CASAS content standards in math and reading to the college and career readiness standards that were in use for K-12. And the study was done by Questar. They found a very strong alignment to our standards, and so we were encouraged by that. Then, in 2013, when I would say the hallmark study for all of us came out, the Pimentel report, Pimentel came out in 2013. It's called College and Career Readiness Standards for Adult Education. How many of you are familiar with that report? I hope I see every hand go up. Good. All right. That is really the seminal document that we're working with now as far as content standards for adult ed. And so with that, we realized that we needed to update our study to see how our standards related to the CCR for adult ed standards. And again, we found a fairly strong relationship. Also, I want to mention that at that time we were luckily still in the process of developing the competencies and I'd say refining and finalizing the competencies for the NADP, the revised curriculum and program. So we were able to incorporate the CCR College and Career Readiness standards into the NADP, and so they are solidly there. And that was really good timing, I have to say. We were glad that we could do that and that we were able to fully incorporate them into the NADP standards. So, in 2013, in addition to finding that we had a pretty good correlation to the adult ed standards, we actually had been collecting some input on our current standards, which were the version that we are currently using out there were developed in 2006, then updated in 2009. But in 2013, we decided let's take another look and see really how we can, if there's something we should do to revise them. And as we began to look at them, we realized that we wanted to revise the categories and the standards, partly to streamline the document, to shorten it. It was about 15 pages, and it was a little bit hard to navigate, I think, for teachers. We had, in the reviews by Questar, they told us, why do you have so many literature standards? Is that important in adult ed? And, we said, well, we put a lot in because we thought they would be helpful, and they said, well, it does give the impression that it's important, perhaps more than you're intending. So that was something that we wanted to do, was to look at them critically and reduce the numbers so that the appearance of that level of importance in terms of number of standards wouldn't be there. We also renamed and reorganized the categories and the standards, so we were able to reduce the number of categories from 9 to 4, and then the number of standards went down from 125 to 51. So I think that's a triumph, and I'm sure all of you will appreciate the more streamlined document. So another goal of the revision of the CASAS reading content standards was to align more strongly to the, I'm going to call it the CCRS, the College and Career Readiness Standards for Adult Education. And so we looked closely to see what we could add from the 3 anchor areas of reading, reading foundations, and language from the English Language and Literacy CCR standards. So we were able to, in the revision, reference all of these CCR standards from those 3 anchor areas in one or more of the revised standards. So that if you, the answer to the question, are the revised CASAS standards very strongly, I would say, very strongly aligned, because the alignment can be weak or it can be strong. And so I really feel, and I'm sure, I'm pretty confident that you'll feel when you see the revised standards, that they are now strongly aligned to the CCR standards for adult education. Another thing that we accomplished, I think, in revising these reading content standards was to incorporate the reading task areas. So I hope you're all familiar, you've all been through our IT training, you know about these 5 CASAS reading task areas, but it's long been a crusade of mine to make these more well-known to teachers, because I think they're a relatively easy way for teachers to get a handle on one aspect of understanding how their students are doing with reading, and that is, in terms of how the reading is displayed in the prompt, in the test, or in the instruction in what they're reading. Is it a form that they have to fill out and understand those kinds of conventions? Is it a chart or a table or a graph with some kind of a matrix structure? Is it text, which comes with things like headings and various other conventions? Or the fourth one is diverse formats. It could be an ad, a sign, a label, those kinds of things that you have to understand how to interpret, those features. And then measurement scales and diagrams that also have their own qualities. So these are important, and some students don't come equipped to learn to read, let's say, forms. They might not have encountered them much in their lives. So the test results can be understood to determine where they're weak in these areas. So we have now incorporated these into the standards, and I think that's going to help to make the whole system more integrated. Okay, so at this point I'd like you to go into your packet. Some of you may have already discovered it, but the draft for discussion at Summer Institute version of the reading standards are there. So as I'm going through the next slide, I think you'll be able to take a look. And there is a pretty detailed introduction that explains some of the things that I just went over, talks about how many standards there are in each of the categories, and also shows how many of the CCR standards for adult ed are there and related to which of the CASAS reading standards. So that's all detailed there. And also the format. In this version, what you're seeing, if you turn all the way to, well, if you go to page 7, you'll see that the top chart shows the format of this document, and that's what we've done so far. Is on the left side you see the CASAS reading standard, the revised one, and we're calling it RDG because the CCRS standards are called R something, so we didn't want to, we wanted to eliminate that confusion. So we're going for RDG, and so our standard is on the left, and then the related anchor standard from the CCRS is on the right, and with indicating which levels, so A, B, C, D, E, in this case, all of them. Now, what is not in this document, but which is coming at some point, will be the version that you're now using in the field, which is with the dots in the middle, to indicate which level each of these standards relates to. So, as Pat was explaining, we don't have finalized levels yet for ABE. We don't have those NRS descriptors yet, and we certainly don't have them for ESL. So it's a bit of a dilemma at the moment how to proceed. But at some point in the future, there will be a version of this that has the dots. Okay? All right, and then if you flip to the next page, you will see the first section is foundational literacy, which is actually fairly similar to what we had before. We had a section like that in our own standards. But the second category is language and vocabulary, so that should remind some of you of the CCRS categories. I'm going to give you time in a minute to look at this in more detail, but just to flip through, the third category we're calling literal and inferential comprehension, and that is where, on the first page of that, page 11, that's where those CASAS reading task areas are called out. So you'll see that, for example, 3.1 relates to CASAS reading task area 3, which is about text, following written instructions. Then the second part of category 3 are other standards for reading comprehension strategies. And that could have to do with either literal or inferential comprehension. And then the fourth area is what is being talked about so much, this aspect of higher order reading skills. That's what we're calling it. And we have one section there that is both related to informational and literary text. Of course, our focus in our CASAS assessments is on information, has always been on informational text, so that's not a shift that we need to make. In K-12, that has been a big change. They've gone from having at least half of their content be literary, and now they're being told to make, I think, 70 or 80% of it information. So but for us, that's not different. But on the last page is the second part of category 4, which is the higher order reading skills, only related to literary text, and that's where I was telling you we reduced the standards quite a bit. Okay, so I'm just going to give you, I just want to say at the bottom of this slide that really the purpose of this exercise, too, was to bring the content standards into the mix of both the CCR Standards for Adult Ed as well as our new test series, which I'm going to talk about for a minute. So really, and one of our founding principles, as you all know, is to align assessment with instruction. So you'll see as we get into the next section, I'll be talking about the reading series, that the categories for reporting the test results will be the same as the categories that are in these revised standards. So in that way, the standards and the test reporting categories are now lined up. As you know, we developed the reading content standards after we developed the system initially with the competencies, and they were an extremely important addition. But in this new iteration, they are now really very well integrated into the CASAS system. So I'd like you to take a minute and just flip through this document, maybe talk with the person next to you if you'd like to for a second, and just see if in addition to what I've talked about, if you see anything that leaps out at you or that you want to ask about. And just take a couple minutes to look a little bit deeper into this document. Okay, so let me ask you, is there anything that you'd like to ask further about or anything you noticed that you want to comment on from what you've seen? I don't know, can the roving mic go to someone if you want to ask questions? Ellie?
I will say, in Stanford, we've been doing this for a year. We have a big initiative to implement college for readiness standards. And it is one of the pilot states, so we've been doing the national training. And that's the other piece of my job, that I'm the national trainer for college and career readiness standards. And this will make it easier because I get the question all the time, do you want us to use CASAS or do you want us to use college and career readiness standards? And how do you want us to use both of them? And how do we decide which one? And I get the question in a variety of ways. And so we've been trying up till now to show where they were the same. But now having this will make it a whole lot easier for them to see. And we spend a lot of time trying to convince them that they can do both.
Great. I'll just mention there are a few CASAS standards that don't align with the CCR, so we kept them in. Yes. Luann? Oh,
Linda, has the implementation training been revised to show more emphasis on task areas and the content standards?
Not yet.
But it will be?
It will be. These are drafts for discussion at Summer Institute, so after the Summer Institute we hope to put them all the way through. Yeah. Other comments or questions?
Will the same process happen with the other English language arts standards? In other words, listening, speaking, and writing?
I'm still catching my breath from this one. Possibly. Let's see. You know, I think that certainly for ESL we'll wait for that project to finish and then we'll know better because we were able to work with we did work with the standards that came out for ABE and ASE. And let's see, but I have a feeling that perhaps they may not change too much with the ESL project. The others will certainly change. The listening and speaking, the writing will definitely be different for ESL. So, let's see. Hopefully we will. Okay. So, I just, first of all, the next slide is what we're up to next about this, and but I really want to express my deep appreciation for two people who helped tremendously in this revision, and one of them is Lori Howard. You stand up. As well as Sylvia Ramirez, who I guess is not here yet today, but she was also a really great contributor. And I think you can thank Sylvia for making it shorter. So we also pulled together an ad hoc reading technical advisory group of national adult ed reading experts from around the country, because I really wanted to get some outside of CASAS perspective on these, and they are people who've been working with the CCR standards for adult ed, and so they gave us some input into these standards, and in terms of how they were aligned and about the wording and various aspects. And here at the Summer Institute, we're going to have some opportunities to get input as well, especially on Thursday we're having some special reading focus groups to look at these again and give us any additional input. So, and now you all have a copy of it too, so really I hope that the reason that we put it in your packets is so that if any of you have comments that you'd like to share, or if you want in the next couple of weeks or 3, I mean if you need more, like if you want to take it back to Connecticut and if you have people who are tuned into this and could really help. We held off on finalizing it until now because we really want your input, and so please do. If you have suggestions, now would be the time. All right, and then once they are completed, which we hope will be this year, we will be presenting a webinar, and then that will be recorded and available on our website. So that's a way that you can share this with people in your state. Okay, can we go on? I'm going to talk a little bit about math and content standards alignment. So we did a similar process with our existing math content standards, and actually they were revised not too long ago, so we haven't felt the need to go through the same process with math content standards as we have with reading. So in 2010 they were compared to the Common Core state standards. There was good alignment, and again in 2013 we looked again based on the NPR Pimentel document for math, and again found good alignment. So we're feeling good about our CASAS math standards, and at the moment we are not planning to revise them. Okay, now I'm going to go on to the assessment portion. We're going to talk about the reading and math test series, about some research studies to validate for the series, and some resources for teachers. So I think you all know, but I will tell you that we are developing a new reading and a new math series, and we are We would like to release it in 2017, but it may be later than that due to forces beyond our control. The test content will be aligned to the College and Career Readiness Standards for Adult Ed. And for reading, the items will contain comprehension questions, for example, that will draw on higher order reading skills, including things like citing evidence from complex texts and the other features. For math, math concepts will be assessed still with common life and work applications, but also will be strongly aligned to the new CCR standards for math. We originally, some of you may remember a couple of years ago, we announced that we were not going to do paper-delivered assessments, and we heard you all gasp and shriek, cry for mercy. And I think also in that regard, we have to thank the GED and the whole drama that unfolded there, because I think the adult education field spoke quite vocally saying, no, we cannot do only online. And so we heard you, and now we are planning to produce both an online as well, that is computer-based, as well as a paper-delivered version of our new test scripts. We know it takes a while for your programs to come up to speed, and hopefully, though, the impetus to get up to speed with the hardware and all the technology is still there. But we didn't want to make it impossible for programs to use it. We will be covering all of the NRS test levels, and we don't quite know yet, but there will be 4 to 5 test levels in the new series. That's going to hinge a bit on the finalization of the descriptors. So the elements that will be measured in our series should look pretty familiar to you, because some of them are the same, but some of them are new. CASAS competencies still there, and so we are, in the spirit of focusing on informational text, our CASAS competencies will be front and center in terms of what the content of the assessments are. Our revised reading standards will be there, of course, as well as the strong alignment to these 3 areas of the CCR for adult ed standards. The reading task areas, again, will be a big part of it, and you'll again be able to get reports from TE on the reading task areas. This new element, though, for some of you is going to be included, and that is something called depth of knowledge, or DOK, and that's something that Norman Webb developed. It has been around for some time in the K-12 arena, but it's new for a lot of adult ed programs, and it looks at cognitive difficulty. So we are looking, there are 4 levels of depth of knowledge, and we're going to be including up to level 3. So if you don't know about depth of knowledge, I would put a star by that and go search about it. There'll be sessions at the Institute where we talk more about it, but that will be one of the components of the new reading series. For reading, the item types will continue to be multiple choice. Of course, we wish that we could do generated response, but one of the realities, the constraints of our adult ed world are that because of time and money mostly, and staffing capacity, we can't really rely on programs to train staff to grade open-ended responses. So that is a limitation that we have to deal with and live with. So we're trying to do our best that we can with multiple choice items. There are ways to get that level of text complexity, certainly in the prompt, and higher order reading skills assessed through the questions. We're doing our level best. So one change that we're making, we've talked about this in previous institutes, but to let you know again, that we're, in addition to comprehension questions, in other words, the question asked in the item would be a what happened in this question mark. Now we are also including a STEM, that is the question prompt, where it will have just a blank at the end. So that just gives us more freedom to word the questions in different ways and work with the syntax a bit. You will see different things in the passages, numbered lines in the text, and that's how you can cite evidence from the text. Okay. The items would also contain references to those numbered lines in the text. And then also, because one of the changes, I think it's a fairly dramatic one in this new series, is there will be more items that are testing vocabulary, though always in context. So it's not just what does X mean without any context. It will be underlined in the text, and the question will require the reader to draw that meaning of that word from that text passage. Okay? But that is a change from our previous series. In Level A, we have some very, I would say beautiful photo prompts that really enhance the items, and so we will have those in the beginning of our Level A test. And then another feature is that we will have what we call item families. So one of the challenges we have is that we're making the test more rigorous, there's going to be more critical thinking. We also have to have more items in the test to really ensure the reliability. So we're looking at 40 to 50 items on each of the test forms. However, we know, I can hear you all saying, how long is that going to take? Right. So the related challenge that we have is how to keep all that done within an hour. And so one of the ways we are hoping to do that is to have fewer reading passages and more items for each passage. So even though the text might be a little longer, that the student, instead of answering 2 or 3 questions for that text, they might be asked 4, 5, or even 6 questions for that text. So they would have gotten more bang for their buck, you might say, for reading that passage, and hopefully save time. We also have some very, very short reading prompts of 1 or 2 sentences. And what we found that's really pretty amazing actually is that if those sentences are complex, then you can actually ask very complex questions about them. So even with the 1 or 2 sentence prompt, we're able to ask 2 or 3, even sometimes 4 questions. So that's another economy of time measure. Now, yes?
With that reading test, I see you mentioned levels A through D. Is there any talk of reworking that pre-lit to 27, 28 as well?
Yes.
Thank you.
As far as our math series, again, CASAS competencies are still front and center. As I was saying earlier, for the content standards, we have our math content standards, and we are strongly aligning to the CCR standards for adult ed in math. The abilities and concepts that we're going to be measuring in this new math series are number sense, algebra, geometry, measurement, and statistical reasoning. Again, these will be skills used in, of course, employment settings. We've been there before, but we're going to have a little more focus on academic context because that is what the CCR for adult ed calls for. So, and a little bit more emphasis on employment than in the previous series of our 11 word series. At all levels, though, the items are going to be aligned with and reflect the skills that are in the CCR for adult ed for math. So I think you got the message by now. That's a big focus of our both series of development and both series. The item types in the math series, there will be word problems as there are now, but the reading complexity and the cognitive load will be consistent with the level of the math series, and that is also consistent with the CCR, where the reading goes hand in hand with any of the content areas, including math. So that will be the case in our word problems as well. There will be simple to advanced calculation. There'll be, of course, traditional academic context, which actually we didn't have so much in the last series, but that will be there in the new series. And situational scenarios that reflect world applications, which are familiar from before. As with reading, there will be 40 to 50 items that will sample all that content at each test level. In the online version, there will be a calculator, but only for the items that require a calculator, not for all of the items. And when required, there will be formula provided with the item, so that way the assessment task will be focused on the math concepts and skills and not on memorization of the formula. Before I go on, let me just ask if there are any questions about the math, or if anyone wants to add anything? Yes.
So there's not doing online testing, would there be a calculator requirement?
I'm going to defer to Jean. Yes, the answer is yes. Okay, we're coming into the 21st century with that, so it's necessary. Anything else on that? Yeah.
So the next series are about interactions in February of 2017.
All right, that's a great segue into the next slide, the timeline. So now we have been and we are still writing and field testing new items, and if you're using the e-tests online, you might have seen them embedded in our operational test forms, not more than 3 items per form, and there has been extended time for that as well, for the whole test. So next up, and again, this is sort of a continuation of the story that Pat was telling you earlier about the descriptors and the timeline for them. Because in order for us to complete our cut score studies, our standard setting studies, we need the finalized versions of the ABE descriptors and then of the ESL descriptors for NRS. So we can go as far as we can in getting the items. You know, we have been, of course, aligning to the standards with our items that we've developed so far, but we are stopped in our tracks until we receive the finalized descriptors. So if they come out soon, then we will be on track to conduct research studies in the next year, and the goal then would be to submit our technical documentation for the ABE ASE, because those are the first NRS descriptors that are going to be finalized next October of 2016. Okay, so we, as I think you all know, our reading series has always been both for ABE and ESL. But one of the essential elements of how we conduct our NRS-related studies is that we have to align to the NRS descriptors. I sometimes joke that we may use them more than any of you. But they are essential to pegging where the cut points fall, and therefore where the items need to fall within a test. So we can't finalize level B until we know what range of scale scores it should relate to. So if we get those finalized ABE ASE descriptors for NRS soon, then we will be able to conduct the cut score studies and then submit next October. For just though, we will submit a reading and a math test only for ABE ASE at that point. Then, as we were saying earlier, there's a new RFP coming out, I don't think it's out yet, that Octane is putting out for the ESL study, and it's called Preparing ELLs, that's the new term, by the way, the K-12 term, we're to move into ELLs as opposed to ESL. But preparing ELLs for rigorous CCR standards. So they're going to do that similar study for ELLs and then probably revise the descriptors for ELLs. So when those are finalized, they'll go out for comment, they'll be unit back. When they're finally finalized, we will then be able to do our studies for the reading test for ELL. So we don't know. I mean, the tests could be ready by 2017, or later for ADE ASE, and they could be ready by 2018, probably later, for ESL. Okay? In the meantime, the draft regulations had some language about what will happen in the transition and at what point the new descriptors would become required for programs. But we put in some comments suggesting that more than one test should be approved that is aligned to the CCR before those standards become required for programs. So there is probably going to be, and again I'm speaking just out of what we imagine, there will probably be an extension of the use of the current series until new test series that are aligned to the CCR have been approved. Okay, so, and we would hope that Octave will come out with some guidance on that would be officially stating that. Okay. For listening, how am I doing for time? Okay. For listening, how many of you are using the 980 series for listening? Okay, some of you are. And I know in Florida they're still using the 80 series. For listening, the 980 series was approved for NRS reporting and is valid through the end of this month. However, you may continue to report results through next year because they have something called a sunset period. So you can keep using the current 980 until next June. We submitted another document to NRS with additional research and studies and some revisions to Octave, and that was as of now, as I can update this now, as of now, we have not heard back. So really we don't know what to say. As soon as we do hear, we will let you know. If it is approved for longer, then we will have some additional guidance about it because there are a few changes, nothing serious, but a few minor changes that you'll have to integrate into your implementation. But we do want to let you know that we support agencies who could keep using even the 80 series if you want to. And as I said, in Florida, they use the 80 series for state reporting, and programs are required to test in both listening and reading, but they report only the reading to the vets. And the 980 series, I think you probably know this, is available in eTest Online and also in the desktop version, as well as in CD format. If you are going to move into using the 980 series to report to NRS, you must pre-test and post-test in that series, so you cannot use a post-test from the 80 series. The appraisal form 80 can be used, and the locator is fine. The one that's in eTest, you can use it for the 980 listening. These 980 tests are a little longer than the 80 series because we wanted to improve the content coverage, and that was done in both levels A and C. And the level A test booklets have color photos, so those are some of the changes in the 980 series from the 80. And these are the cut scores for the 980. The thing that's most different, because we conducted a new cut score study for the 980 series, and these are the old ranges that you'd be familiar with, where the advanced level went from 221 to 235. But this standard setting panel came up with a lower cut point, a lower starting point, and a lower end point for the 980 series at 227. So if you use the 980 series, then you would be using these cut points for that series and not the old ones. Now, our favorite subject, field testing. In your packet there is a page that has what kinds of studies we have to do so that we can get approved, so that you can use our tests. And we hope that you will be as cooperative as you have been before, working with us to get this field testing done. It's been extremely efficient, I think, so far, that we've relied entirely on the embedded items in eTests Online. So we haven't bothered you yet, right? But now, the time has come when we do need your help for some of these special studies. And some of them are a bit inconvenient because we have to have the same student, for example, take one form of the test and then take another alternate form within a week. And so those are just some of the requirements of these studies. There's nothing we can do about them. And it doesn't have to be obviously all students, but we need some students at each level to do that. So that we hope that you will be able to help us with these, and we will be starting some of these possibly later this fall. And our contact at CASAS is Andrea Shields. Her information is there. And I think what we'll do after Summer Institute also is send you electronic version of the same handout that you have, and that way it'll be easier for you to pass on to programs in your states. Okay, so that's my short but earnest plea for help. Also in your packet there's a blue sheet that looks at the intake process. Before we go there, I'm sorry I didn't mention before, but in your packet there's also some information about the maps, test blueprint, and the content standards for math with docs. So that you have. And also there's there's a handout that shows the reading reporting categories that shows the CCR alignments for each of those categories. All right, let's go on. I just want to go over briefly this intake process. I would say that one of the CASAS myths out there that upsets me the most, one of them that upsets me the most, is when people say, oh, you don't have to do an oral screening if you're using eTests Online. No, you do. For every ESL student, you need to do an oral screening, regardless of the mode of test delivery. So the process here, we've done many runs of this to try to make it clear, but the basic idea is that the oral screening, and if you want to do a writing screening, should be the first thing you do with an ESL student. It could happen with your registration form or with a simple other measure. In the ESL appraisal Form 80 manual, there are some suggestions for that. You don't have to use those, but the 6-question oral screening most programs use, it works pretty well. If you score less than 6, then really that means that the student doesn't have much English in terms of their speaking skills, which could very well translate to not having many listening skills or reading skills. So you'll see that arrow goes to 2A, and then you would not give the locus or appraisal, but you move into this whole process of using the Form 27 practice questions and then deciding on the pretest based on those. If they do 6 or better on the oral screening, or they do well with the writing, then you do want to give them a read locator. And if you're in eTests, that locator is short and free. So we really hope that you will have every student take the locator before a reading, listening, or math test, because it really helps to give them the correct pretest form. And that is essential to have accurate measurement. And then when all is said and done, if you do test in 2 modalities, there's a note at the bottom that says the recommendation is to place on the lower of the 2 scores. And the ADE is on the flip side. There you don't have to do video screening, but you can do some initial assessment to see if the student has digital literacy skills, and based on that, you could skip the locator or appraisal and go to Form 27 also to do the same kind of diagnostic. Because there's no sense giving a student a test that isn't, that you know is going to be too difficult for them. It's just really wasting their time and increasing their anxiety. So if you're not already familiar with this process, I recommend that you look at it and see how you can incorporate these screenings in your intake process for ABE and especially for ESL. Okay. That's the end of our time. One more. All right. This is here because now all of the information that guides you in terms of what the next test should be are the same. They're the same in the TAM, they're the same in e-tests. So that is, and they're all online on our website. And each form has its own chart. So we have done some work to streamline and regularize these recommendations. And I hope that will be helpful to you, as because some of you have used different modes within your program. So now it's the same throughout all of our test delivery modes. Okay, any questions about that? All right, well, thank you.